to Beyond the Barrier,
Rockingham 905.
the podcast where we explore the wild world of public safety, fire, law enforcement, EMS, and security with your hosts, Jake, Corwin, and Joe. We're here to break down the barriers and go beyond the usual topics, from heroic tales of first responders to the latest tech in the security industry. We've got you covered, so buckle up and get ready for a ride that's sure to be as exciting as a high-speed chase, but with less sirens. Let's jump beyond the barrier and see what's on the other side.
Starting to get cars for a parking problem.
Welcome back to Beyond the Barrier, everyone. Let's get a little housekeeping done, and then we will get on to our new next and exciting episode. If you'd have something you'd like us to talk about, you can email us at beyondthebarrier1@gmail.com or reach out to us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter. If you'd like to consider supporting us, stop by Patreon and check us out there at patreon.com/beyondthebarrier. You get a few perks over there. You get a sticker. You get episodes a day early. You get Discord access. If you have some artwork that you'd like to submit to us, please submit it to us at beyondthebarrier1@gmail.com. And for this episode, we are talking about Convergence of Cybersecurity and Physical Security. Pretty big topic. This is more Corwin's world. He will be our lead on it, I guess. So I will let him take it over.
Before we get too far, there's something I wanted to do, and that was just take like a quick moment of silence. There were 2-3 weeks ago, there was a hospital security officer in Oregon killed at work. He was shot. So just wanted to kind of maybe dedicate this episode to him and take a quick moment of silence for him.
So, like Jake said, this episode is going to go over the convergence of cybersecurity and physical security. You guys can't tell, but this is a topic that I really enjoy and I'm smiling about because, like Jake said, it's in my wheelhouse. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in cybersecurity. That's not at all the case. I just did a little bit of work when it comes to the convergence within a financial institution and watching that system evolve over time. So really, what does it mean? It's when you're looking at a Venn diagram of these two security components, a lot of people, they don't think or they see a lot of overlap, but the convergence is about that overlap. Jake, Joe, how many times have you guys seen videos of people wearing a high-vis vest with a clipboard and getting into places?
Plenty of times. You hear about it all the time. People use, the most mundane shit as a means to get in.
Exactly. And that's why physical and cybersecurity, they have to work together. But why? There is a high risk of cyber attacks. And if your physical security, your security officers, and your cybersecurity can't talk to each other, it puts wrinkles in things like access control. Who gets into what part of the building, when, where, and why. Within the financial institution that I worked at, we didn't have a physical security team. Access control was done by the information technology security team, which I did a little bit of that access control. When people got hired, they got no longer with the company, or they had to have some additional accesses. I helped put that together and put them within the right sleeve that they belong to.
You're basically taking away, adding, and giving different people different types of permissions, right?
Yeah, when it comes to access control. So a lot of places, access control is done by a key card. So I was able to, and my job was to give people access on their key card to specific places at specific times. Now, that's a really broad oversimplification of it. I did a lot of other things. What I didn't do, I was not the guy creating the code to hack into computers. I'm not that smart. I focused on things like access control. I focused on things like malicious code analysis, checking phishing emails, that kind of stuff.
Access control for networking and computers and stuff, it might consist of different things like who has permission to access this shared drive or stuff like that.
Yep. So you have computer access control, then you have physical access control. And I did both. But that convergence is really talking about how your physical security team and your cybersecurity team can work together. Because you don't want someone to walk in with a high-vis vest and a clipboard and say, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I need to work on some cables in your server closet. And they have access to it. Because it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things how good of cybersecurity technologies that you have if they have physical access to your stuff. Because physical access is king. And that's my opinion. Other people might have...
They can get so much more if you allow them that physical access. They can do a lot more damage a lot faster. And it can be detrimental to an organization. There's been plenty of organizations that have either had to pay large sums of money, and I'm talking large, millions of dollars to get their systems back, or it's even bankrupted companies. So,
and cybersecurity insurance only covers so much. But like I said, and like Jake said, this is going to be a high-level overview. You can get into a lot of the nitty-gritty, but why is it important? It allows that communication to be streamlined throughout the company. It also makes your information systems safer. And in the process of disaster recovery, for example, that's handled a lot of the time by your networking and your information security team. It allows your physical security team to also make sure that in disaster recovery efforts, you can get the right things in the right places.
Go back and touch on that physical access portion of it. I have a little bit of experience from when I worked maintenance, because we were in charge of basically pulling data cables, activating ports, stuff like that. So I see all the time I did see all the time that a big risk that a lot of places I don't think considered was they just had active data ports that weren't being used that were accessible to the general public in places where you wouldn't think about, you don't think about it. And so just a lot of things that could be considered in a topic like that.
Yeah, and that's where your security officers, if they notice something or see something a little off, that communication with the cybersecurity team is paramount. Hey, I found this person in this conference room by themselves. Looks like they hooked up a laptop to this port. Are they supposed to be in here? Is there any data being transmitted from that port that should be transmitted?
That would be something that I would see as odd in the first place. If I were to see someone plugged into a port.
Is it odd though for a hospital?
I'm saying
room and
it's
you just see a guy in a suit and tie sitting there with a laptop in a conference room
plugged into a data port. Yeah, I still see it as odd.
How is that odd?
Because here's how I see it as odd, because everywhere offers Wi-Fi everywhere nowadays. Nobody. I mean, how often do you see a laptop plugged into a data port? I can't even remember the last time I saw one that was plugged into a data port. So that would raise my suspicions. But that's not to say that, the Joe Schmo that's walking by that, doesn't know any better probably wouldn't bat an eye at it. I guess we probably have a leg up on it because we know a little more than probably the common person that's walking by and would see that. But yeah, I would find that as odd and probably something I would report and probably report it rather quickly. Even if it just turns out being, nothing, because again, just in my eyes, I would see that as, very odd.
And Jake, you brought up a really good point. A lot of security officers, they're not trained to look for that type of stuff. I know.
No, absolutely. They're not trained one bit at all. The most training that like my officers get where I work is like they get a phishing email from IT, every so often. But that's the most. I guess yeah, it's kind of training, but it's more of just showing people what to look for. It's not really training them on, what it is that they're actually being tested to,
Well, and it's only one portion of the cybersecurity triad. They're only getting that small little portion of, hey, don't click on suspicious email links, not, hey, this person shouldn't be in this area, which they should know. They also shouldn't have a laptop plugged into a port. Most officers, yeah, they might find that a little weird, but are they going to follow up on it? Working with some of the officers that I do, no, that's not the case.
Yeah, no. Most of our officers, they're not naive, but we have really good officers, but I can guarantee you that very, very few of them, if they saw that, would think that they need to report that to somebody.
Mm-hmm. And it's vice versa as well. You're not going to have Jake from IT go down to level C to check on a port that's being used that normally hasn't been used or has different types of data flowing through it. Why would he? Or maybe it's off time and you have 24-hour security there. Why not send the security officer in? Tell them what they should be looking for. Should they be looking for someone in a conference room that's normally not used?
Yeah, because on the other side of that, IT, they, if they suspect that, hey, this area needs checked out, they have now stepped out of their realm. They should definitely be contacting security to go and check that out for them and have them report back to them because, if I'm getting caught hacking, I'm probably going to become a little violent or fight. I don't want to get caught, that's for sure. Yep. So, the two need to communicate. The IT guy doesn't need to be going down checking who's accessing the port, and the security guy doesn't need to be getting on the network and seeing what they did.
Exactly. And, some businesses, some organizations, they don't have both components. The financial institution that I worked at, we didn't have that physical security. So what did I do? I took that place. If something happened, we had an attorney click on a suspicious email link. It turned out to be a phishing email, and we didn't have security to go out and say, hey, I need your laptop. I had to get up from, whatever part of the building I was in, go find where this attorney was, take his laptop, go back, do analysis and see if were there any processes or programs downloaded at that point in time. Is there anything that I can discern with potential compromise? If so, how do I take care of the forensics of that so that the higher tier teams, your tier 2, tier 3 team, can take care of that? Or in some instances, I walked around the entire building and I was looking for sticky notes with people's passwords on them. The amount of passwords that I found under keyboards or right next to their keyboard on their desk is astounding. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and we didn't have security that went around and did that all the time. I know, Jake, when our officers are doing rounds, I don't think it'd be anything to just have them look around. Is there a sticky note with access information on it? If so, toss it. That's what I had to do.
Well, while you're talking about that, let me ask you this. What is the risk of an organization having just generic passwords? For instance, where I previously worked, we had an S2 net system, which is what controls physical keycard access. And the password for that was capital P @ password.
It's super.
And it never gets changed. Never gets changed.
Super dangerous.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. So actually, where we work now, we had a generic login. Joe, I'm sure you remember it. I'm not going to say it, but they actually just got rid of it because it's such an issue.
And coming from the other side of it, we had to develop a process because people on our mainline help desk were changing passwords to generic passwords. When someone wants to compromise an account or they want to hack into portions of your organization and they're doing their due diligence, they're creating that, basically that profile of the company. What keywords do they use? Do they use certain phrases? If so, let's put that at the top of either that rainbow chart, or if I'm creating just something to, in essence, type in passwords for me, random passwords to brute force, I'm going to use those things. Maybe I'm hacking in a Nike and they have a generic password that's just do it one or Nike 456. That's what hackers do. That was part of my job. I did threat intelligence and OSINT. So I went out for vendor due diligence and I found what I could find on potential vendors for our company. Or I went through and I looked at our cyber hygiene.
And that's a huge thing is vendors, because they have so much access that they, people don't even realize it, that they have this profound access. And it's not that they have this unnecessary access. It's an access that they need for their job, but it's the organization's part to make sure that it's monitored. And the other thing is if that vendor is hacked, there's a high likelihood that information for the organizations that they serve, they should really, really watch their systems too, because there's when they are hacking a vendor, I would say 9 times out of 10, they are hacking that vendor to get into someone a lot larger.
Exactly. And a lot of that goes back to supply chain security threats, because it's not just logistics and that type of supply chain, it's your vendors. Even your VoIP, your voice over IP vendor could have an old server that's compromised and whatever. If someone that's motivated to attack you or your company knows that you're using that specific vendor, and you in particularly might have the best physical security, some of the best cybersecurity tools at your disposal, why not hack your vendor? It might be a lot easier. And that was part of my job, was to see, hey, has this vendor been hacked? How is their threat response, all that kind of stuff. I asked some very uncomfortable questions to a lot of different companies before we decided on a vendor. And it's astounding what you can figure out without even identifying yourself. I said, I am a potential customer. I need to know these things. Can you tell me some of these things? And that goes into social engineering and finding out as much as you can. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they see those dollar signs of potential customers show up. Yeah, I'm going to tell him whatever the fuck he wants to know. And they give out, or they can give out, too much information, too just, way too much, and allow somebody. And then these vendors, so we'll take the hospital in, for instance. We have one major vendor for our hospital supplies. So all the equipment that's used every day, your bandages, IVs, whatever, everything. We have one main vendor for that. If they take that vendor out, it's going to take out the hospital for a while. So it's super important that that organizations realize this and realize that they need to have a hand, not have a hand in what their vendors are doing, but know what they're doing and work together.
Exactly. And that goes not just for outside threats, it's insider threats too. You find stories online and you read about employees that were unhappy with their workplace and decided to delete files, or if they're in IT, they decided to do XYZ things. Have your physical security on standby so that they can get their access control cards. They can get company property immediately if they're in the office, and they can escort them off so that they're not using those generic logins or shared logins to access things before they leave and create a havoc. Because it happens. It sucks, but it happens. And it's up to those two teams to ensure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I'll say this. So the according to the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, the establishment of having those two work together, physical security and cybersecurity, if something does happen, if you have those two working in conjunction, the company or organization is better prepared to identify, prevent, mitigate, and respond to those cyber threats, both on a cyber side of it and in a physical side. So it is super paramount that, organizations need to get with the times. It's already hard enough to keep up with cybersecurity because it is emerging. It is, I'm sorry, not emerging, evolving literally like every minute of the day. It's an ever evolving thing, and it's not going away. It's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year. So it is super important that organizations realize that they need to have these two work together.
And a lot of the apprehension to having these two organizations work together is that information siloing. Your cybersecurity team doesn't want to give access or too much access to network stuff to your physical security team. And your physical security team doesn't want to access that stuff, but they also don't want to hand over information to your cybersecurity team for whatever reason. And that's just a detriment. And some of that has to do with your cybersecurity team. Some people in the technology field are a little elitist. I'm going to just say that outright. You can agree, disagree. That's just my opinion. And having the thought process of having this security officer, this security guard, have a way to weasel their way into your branch of technology scares some people, but it shouldn't. Knowledge is power, and shared knowledge creates a safer working environment for both that physical security officer, your cybersecurity officer, and everyone that works within that organization. We have to get out of that mindset of siloing information just for the sake of siloing it. Because it does. It's dumb. It just creates a more risky environment to work in.
So, kind of one of the things I wanted to touch on, just because we work at the hospital, is and here recently, I would say in the last, not even recently, it's been going on for a while. I'll say the hospital that I work at, they suffered a cyber attack, like maybe 6-7 years ago, something like that. Maybe Joe knows. Anyway, they got a lot of information, a lot. The hospital, they got hundreds of thousands of patients' information. It was, I believe, the biggest cyber attack in our state. It did a lot of damage. But so U.S. healthcare is one of the main targets of cyber attacks. And then just the first half of 2023, the healthcare sector has suffered about 295 breaches. That's just in the first half. And more than 39 million individuals were impacted by that. 39 million people in the first 6 months of 2023. That is insane. That is a tremendous amount of information leaked. The reason that they go after healthcare so much is because, well, they have everything of yours, right? They have your name, your birth certificate, or not your birth certificate, your name, your social security number, your birthday, all that. They have it all. It's in your healthcare chart. So if they can get those charts, they can get your all that information and do what they want with. Those charts also contain banking information. So U.S. healthcare is not only U.S. I can't speak for other countries, but I'm sure they suffer attacks as well.
Oh, absolutely. The three biggest targets for cyber attacks are your financial institutions, your healthcare institutions, and anyone that has to do with logistics. And that's not just from the hacker down the road. That is from nation-state actors. So places like North Korea, Iran, Russia, all of those large countries that want to do harm to another nation, they focus on those three things. Why? Because if they can interrupt the cash flow, it creates issues in funding things. It can cause some discord with healthcare if you can't keep your population healthy. Unfortunately, it's a sad reality that it doesn't matter who or what you are. In the next generation of warfare, cyber warfare is going to become and has been becoming a very large landscape that
Absolutely.
You're going to be hitting the crossfire. And logistics, if you can't get things to move, you stall a country.
Let's and we can kind of we've seen it happen already in a way. Look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia was basically crippled logistically. And I'm not so much by actually they did suffer quite a few cyber attacks. But their main reason for their logistics being crippled was more than cyber attacks, but it played a huge role in it. Cyber warfare is a thing. It's probably a very detrimental thing that it is a necessary tool of war these days.
Yep, and going back to North Korea, North Korea likes to target financial institutions and larger companies so that they can generate cash flow for their nation. If you haven't been around for the last 70 years, apparently North Korea is starving. And they tend to not take care of citizens, and to fund their nuclear ambitions, they utilize cybercrime. And believe it or not, North Korea has some of not the best, but they have some really smart individuals.
I just watched a video the other day, and it was ranking nation-state organization actors. And of course, United States is number 1, Russia's number 2, China's number 3. But I believe North Korea was like 4 or 5 or 6, and that doesn't seem like they're high up there. But look at North Korea; they're stuck in like the 60s and the 70s, but not their cyber. They are not. They are very with times, and they have caused a lot of havoc. And while we're talking about
nation-state actors.
Nation-state actors. There you go. I just wanted to touch on how cunning they can be. So Russia loves cyber attacks. They love them. They're known for them. And Russia's been doing it for a very long time. Russia started their cyber program, or whatever you want to call it, during the Cold War. But anyway, so here recently, this anonymous Sudan emerged. And if you don't know what Anonymous is, go do some research on them. They're probably the biggest hacking group in the world. They're not probably. They are the biggest hacking group in the world. And this Anonymous Sudan appeared. And I forget who they attacked. It wasn't like... Anyway, I don't remember who they attacked, but they attacked several organizations. They created a lot of havoc amongst the cyber world.
So they have done some ethical and non-ethical hacking, correct?
Well, so this Anonymous Sudan, what I was getting at is how cunning these countries can be. So over time, this Anonymous Sudan, and we'll touch on what you're talking about in just a second, Joe. This Anonymous Sudan, they hacked several organizations. Anyway, so after some research and some looking into this Anonymous Sudan, it ended up that it was not part of Anonymous at all. They have nothing to do with that group. It was actually Russian nation-state actors. But it was actually Russian nation-state actors, and they're putting on a front as the Anonymous Sudan, because for obvious reasons, you don't want to be tied back to your own attack, right? Because then people are able to prove who attacked them, and then sometimes you can hold them responsible. It's kind of hard to hold Russia responsible for anything because they just kind of do whatever the fuck they want. But to answer Anonymous Joe, yes, they do. I guess you could say they do some good hacking if there's good hacking. They kind of just, if they don't like you, then fuck you. They fuck you. I don't know how else to put it. They've done.
I want to say that I remember in recent time, couple years or so, that there was some specific person that got fired from a job or was sick or something. I don't remember what the circumstances were, but they hacked the employer, healthcare, whatever the hell it was, for this person, took all the money and gave it to this person. And he deserved it for what, again, it's stolen money, and I say that he deserved it, but their intentions were good, even though it was illegal, is what I'm trying.
Yeah, the Anonymous has done plenty of things like that, but they've also done malicious things as well.
I remember in episode 1 saying that we were going to get canceled because of CIA, NSA comments. Today we're going to get canceled by the group Anonymous.
Oh. No, they're just going to hack our shit.
Yeah, so I'm going to destroy all of my stuff and create a new identity.
They're not... So, Anonymous, I want to say I like them, but they have done things that are...
Well, let's get into it. So, the hierarchy. Who is Anonymous? Who runs Anonymous?
Nobody knows.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm saying is, nobody knows.
People have speculated. People have speculated a lot about Anonymous. And I'm sure somebody has guessed right. But yeah, to this day, nobody knows. And they're really good at covering their tracks. Like they run a Twitter account publicly, and they're people still aren't able to figure out who they are. They're really good at hiding their tracks.
It's not called Twitter anymore. It's called X.
I don't give a shit. I'm still calling it Twitter. Who bought it? Elon Musk?
Yes.
Yeah, fuck him. He's dumb. Now we're going to get kicked off Twitter.
Probably. Thanks for that, Jake. You know how much
Anytime, I
work
try
it
my
takes to deal
best.
with that? But yeah, I'm not. And Anonymous is this really weird, decentralized anything. There is no quote unquote real leadership. It is people that are loosely associated with Anonymous and do things that are ethically questionable. And there are white hat, there are black hat, there are gray hat hackers. I could go on about this all day. Jake's heard me go on about these topics because I'm very passionate about these things. I'm not a coder. I'm not the guy that you see in the 90s movies saying, I'm in. No, I focused on threat intelligence. I wanted to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on in the landscape. I want to know what's going on in the network. It's just nice to know those things and to say, hey, this is what we need, and then get those engineers on to something that I can't do. And it's not that I can't do, I just haven't learned how to do it because it's difficult. And I've made a lot of friends in that industry. One who served as a technical advisor for the TV show Mr. Robot. I've made other friends that work within the industry doing various different things. But the biggest things that I noticed in my time in that industry and then transferring over to physical security is you have to have a solid procedure. And that's what I focused on. I focused on governance, risk, and compliance, as well as open source intelligence and intelligence in general in that sphere. Having a solid book or a Bible, if you will, for your employees to follow helps make things so much better.
Yeah.
And it helps deal with phishing, social engineering attacks, your remote workforce security.
Which is really big right now. The remote workforce, everybody's working from home these days. COVID brought that on. If you can work from home, stay at home and work. And people don't realize that they're so susceptible to an attack from home if they're not practicing good good tactics to keep them safe and keep their organization safe. Because when you're working remote, you might be on like your company's website, but you've accessed that through your internet now. All right. So now all they have to do to get into your company is get into your internet. So how safe are you at home? It's people got to think about that kind of stuff. It's unfortunate that you do these days, but these days, that's what this world has come to. And like Corwin already said, the phishing, I don't know the exact number, but I would say probably 90% or more malicious attacks on companies start with a phishing email.
Those are considered business email compromises. And believe it or not, I worked for an organization in which a very senior member of the company, obviously I'm not going to say names or whatever, got an email purporting to be from the company's chief executive officer saying, hey, I need XYZ gift cards for employees as a bonus and as incentives for them for doing good work. And it was about $2,000 worth, which doesn't seem like a lot depending on the organization. But to know that a senior member of an organization fell for a phishing email like that, provided gift cards to a bad actor was very concerning to me. And after that, we had to roll out additional training for all associates and senior leadership on what to look for in phishing emails.
Yeah, because it can be really hard and they can be really convincing. And another thing that plays into it more often or not is, unfortunately, I'm a younger guy. Corwin's a lot younger than me, but our older generation, they didn't. Everybody talks about that as they're technologically inclined, and that's solely based on their preference if they choose to learn about the internet and all that stuff. But it comes into play. They can be a little more naive, and they click on stuff and they're more susceptible to things that you and I would see and immediately recognize that this is probably not legit.
Yep, and there are different techniques in phishing emails that can make it very difficult. People will use different forms of things like typo squatting. So if you're typing in, let's say, Nike, and they spell it N-I-C-K-E instead of N-I-K-E, and put that in the URL, that kind of stuff. Some people don't pay attention to that as much, or they switch a letter and a longer name. That type of stuff. It happens, and it doesn't matter how old you are.
And some of those phishing emails, all you have to do is open it. You don't even have to do anything. It can be hard. You see an email that you want to open it. You need to really look at something before you open it.
And AI, large language models, things like ChatGPT, they're making it more difficult because it's taking on a more natural human approach. So you don't even have to be proficient in any language to have it type out a phishing email for you. Now, there are protections that ChatGPT has in place, but there are other language models that are open source or are more readily available for people to break. And there are 2 current models on what people consider the dark web. But there are language models out there specifically for creating malicious code and for creating better phishing emails and doing all that type of stuff. It's out there. And, technology, cybersecurity is just this giant beast. And there are many facets in that giant beast. But we have to have it work together with your physical security team to ensure that your organization, the employees that rely on you physical security officers and you cybersecurity associates to keep them safe, and so that they can continue to work and provide for their families. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. We're sitting there and you're part of that defense to ensure that people can feed their families. Because without a secure environment, they're not going to keep people around. They're not.
And Corwin mentioned the large language models. That's a newer thing. Not super new, but newer. And a lot of people know it as AI. And that is exactly what it is it's AI. And so he mentioned that it can be used to be harmful. It's kind of dual purpose. So large language model, LLMs, they can be used to aid in cybersecurity immensely. They can aid greatly in cybersecurity. One of the ways they can do that is they can sift through unstructured data from various sources like blogs, articles, or forums and identify emerging threats. But they can also be used maliciously. It's a great tool, but for when they create a great tool, not a lot of times that same tool that is meant to aid can also be used to create chaos.
Exactly. And I know, like, from my experience, Jake knows I work with our leadership on policies and restructuring policies. And in our last meeting, I said, we have to look at things as if I'm looking at this policy. How can I get around this policy? How do I make sure I don't get in trouble? And it took some people aback because it's like, well, are you planning on getting in trouble? Well, no. But it's the same things malicious people use when these tools come out. How can I use this tool for bad? How can I make money off of this? How can I do X, Y, Z?
And it's really not that hard. So like with the LLMs, as much good as it causes, or it does, I'm sorry, as much good as it does or going to do in the future, it's not that hard to turn it around and make it into that thing that causes a lot of malicious or does a lot of malicious activities. So let's move on a little bit here. Let's get into let's talk about recent attacks. All right, and the first one I want to talk about is the country of Costa Rica. The entire country was just recently shut down by I don't remember how it's pronounced.
Conti.
Yeah, something like that, Conti or something, whatever. So they attacked the country with ransomware, and they attacked specifically like their I guess their equivalent or our equivalent to like Social Security, like governmental healthcare websites, that kind of stuff. And so Costa Rica kind of agged it on, which unfortunately a lot of places do. So this Conti group, they notified Costa Rica that, hey, we're gonna attack you. And Costa Rica said, all right, pussy, well, let's see what you got. And Costa Rica thought that they were ready for this attack and that they could combat it all day long, and they could not. They were shut down in a matter of hours. And I believe a large portion of their attack was DDoS attacks. So it doesn't technically harm their system. It just overloads it, am I correct, Corwin?
So a DDoS is basically sending a lot of information to their servers that makes it clog. Think of it like a pipe. And they put not toilet paper in that pipe. It backed everything up. It caused a stoppage. It wouldn't let things go through. Think of it like that.
Yeah, so I believe a large portion of their attack was DDoS attacks. But they also did ransomware. And this ransomware is a lot more harmful. And it ended up costing Costa Rica $60 million a day. $60 million a day. That is absolutely insane. That is that is a lot of money. So Costa Rica was not ready for an attack. They should have kept their mouth shut, and they shouldn't have agged this group on. And Costa Rica is not the first company to
Country.
Or I'm sorry, country. They're not a company. Well, I mean, they kind of are. Anyway, but it's not the first one we'll talk about today that agged someone on, and they did not fare well from agging them on. So another recent attack, and one more at home that people might know of, if you're a nerd like us three. Nvidia was just recently attacked by the group called Lapis. They stole a bunch of files from Lapis from Nvidia, and they demanded money from Nvidia, and Nvidia refused to pay them. Which a lot of companies do. For those of you that don't know, Nvidia is probably one of the largest tech industry organizations in the world. So you would think, and I'm sure they do, have a very robust IT program and are very cybersecurity aware, since they create hardware and software for the computing world. So anyway, Nvidia refused to pay them, and Nvidia actually they won't confirm that they did this, but they've led on that they did do this. Nvidia had Lapis hacked back, and it did not go well for Nvidia. Lapis so Nvidia had him hacked back and had the files that Lapis stole encrypted. So Nvidia, thinking that they have now ended this attack, they had not. Lapis had made backups of the files they had stolen, and after Nvidia hacked them, or after Nvidia hacked them back, Lapis released all those files, and the files contained like designs for hardware and things like that. I don't believe there was any like personal information leaked, but just having things like their
proprietary information,
which is a huge hit for a company like Nvidia, because if that stuff gets out, competitors get a hold of it, that's a huge hit for them.
Competitors are going to be like, I pinky promise I didn't look at that stuff.
Yeah, and they all did. Every single one of them looked at it. They all are, because like I said, Nvidia is world known, world renowned. They are probably one of the top manufacturers for things like graphics cards. So yeah, it was probably a very large blow to them. They didn't, when I was reading about that attack, they didn't specifically say a dollar amount that they had been affected or whatever.
Oh, well, if it's intellectual property, it's going to be hard to quantify how much money that's going to damage.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So our last attack that I wanted to talk about, that everybody should know them, was NATO. NATO was attacked about 3 weeks ago, I believe. The hackers, they claimed that it had nothing to do with the Russia and Ukraine war. As if you guys don't know, NATO has come up a lot in that conflict because Ukraine would like to become part of NATO for several reasons that we're not going to get into because we're not a war podcast. But the hackers claim it had nothing to do with that. And that they just wanted to hack NATO because they believe that NATO has committed war crimes. And again, and when I was reading that article, they didn't specifically cite what the hackers got their hands on, nor did they say anything about demands or anything that the hackers had made. But I think that just goes to that speaks to the volume, nobody is untouchable from hacking. Nobody. This is, Costa Rica. So this is a country, Costa Rica. They were shut down by a hacking group. NATO, which is made up by several large countries, United States, but NATO, they were hacked. So a lot, everybody is susceptible to hacking and cyber attacks.
Do you ever think that cybersecurity experts and IT consultants, things like that, do you ever think that they focus so much on preventing the next big attack that they forget to focus on the little things, and the old school type of hacking and stuff like that just slips through because they focus so much on the new stuff?
Oh, 100%. And it's not just the next cyber thing. I know in going through some red team documents that there are companies out there that they have robust security systems to the point that you have Maglocks. So magnetic locks on their doors, which you can't really get into a building if it's maglocked. Can't pull it open very easily. But there's a small problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't say you can't, because
it's difficult.
Those Maglocks, we had a guy at the hospital rip one of them fucking doors off the hinge, and it was maglocked hose. Anyway, carry on.
Anyway, they have that piece of equipment, but they overlooked one small design flaw. If you paper-clipped a piece of paper, because this particular door, if you're walking out of the building, it had a motion detector that would disengage the maglock. If you paper-clipped a piece of paper, slid it underneath the door, and wiggled it around, it would open the maglock from the outside.
That is some MacGyver shit.
And that's why your physical and your cybersecurity teams have to be on the same page. Because, if you're a normal, reasonable person, if you pull on that door and you pull real hard on it, you're probably just going to leave it there. But if you have information that you absolutely want, you will find a way to get in there. And just having that little opening and that little motion detector allowed the team to get in.
That's another reason for why the two need to be brought together, cyber and physical. Because again, like Corwin just said, they have this robust, great system, still able to get through it.
And there are companies or organizations out there. They have what's called a GSOC, Global Security Operating Center, where you have physical and cybersecurity people working side by side. You have them working on access control. You have them doing physical grounds checks, all that kind of stuff to ensure the safety and security of the organization or the building that they're in, because it houses some pretty important stuff.
A lot of I've heard
to go back and touch on, we were talking about the Maglocks and stuff. There's my previous employer, the one I talked about with the generic password for their S2 system. So, this is a very, very, very large organization, and they have made it. They're so naive, So you have to have an IP address to get to that. The IP address is readily available. I can access that IP address from home, and the username and password never changes. And with that, if you log into that, I can disable all their gates, all their access control doors, their IT closets, their security operations center. And they're so naive that they haven't realized that.
That's a huge issue, honestly. But while doing some research, I hear a lot that companies aren't combining these two forces together because of cost, which is I'm sure that's 99% of the issue of why these two aren't brought together. But they can do simple things to start it off at. You don't have to start big and create a SOG like Corwin was talking about. Even if these companies just have the two work together, share information with each other, have tabletop exercises with the two groups. There's so many things that they can do already that aren't going to cost them money, but I guarantee you will save them money, and they just don't realize that. It is so easy to send each other an email or sit down and say, hey, we've had this going on. Could you have your guys, pick up patrol in this area? Or, hey, my guys noticed this with this server room. It's so easy to do that.
And it can be as simple as, hey, if you see a Post-it note with a password and username, throw it away for us.
Yeah. Simple things.
To go back and touch on, the websites, the URL might just deviate just a little bit, or it's a number or a letter or something. My wife fell victim to that. Fucking ordered shoes from heydudes.com. Well, it was actually a Chinese website that had been changed just by a letter, or so I don't remember how it was changed exactly. But fortunately for us, they didn't take any card information or anything. All they were doing was trying to sell their product in a malicious way, though, because obviously they advertised it as something that it wasn't. So, fortunately for us, we were okay as far as credit card information, stuff like that. But instead of getting some Hey Dudes in the mail, we got some Chinese fucking flip flops.
So on a personal level, you lost a little money on that. Are you upset? Yes. Now imagine if you're a Fortune 500 company and you did that for whatever and you lost 120 times that amount. Is bad.
Yeah, so, I mean, people really need to... It sucks that you have to, but you really need to pay attention. Give you all a quick little fun fact for you. The United States Senate is talking about forming a cyber branch of the military called the U.S. Cyber Force, so they are able to combat or attack other countries and state actors.
Yep, and chances are it would be similar to what the Space Force does right now. Each branch of the military currently has its own cyber security and cyber-based military MOSs, military operational.
What Corin's referring to is, like he said, every branch of the military has their own little cyber team. And there's kind of no
it's information siloing again.
Yeah, so just because the U.S. Navy knows this about this doesn't mean that the Army knows about this. They do kind of have a collab under the U.S. Security and Infrastructures Agency, but again, there's still that gap, and that gap's not being filled. And for those of you that don't know, the United States is the number one attacking state actor. The United States carries out hundreds of cyber attacks. A big one that I can think of off the top of my head is during was it Iraqi or no? During when ISIS was forming, or when ISIS was getting big. The United States carried out several attacks against ISIS on a cyber aspect, and they would take down their computers. And they did this several times where they attacked ISIS.
And what's interesting is a lot of those attacks were on their financial infrastructures. It's almost like private and nation-state actors go after the same thing. Goes after the money.
Oh, yeah.
Money and information.
Oh, yeah. It's always money and information. There's no other reason for a cyber attack. Yeah, I'm sure there is, but again, like 99% of the time, it's for one of those two things or both.
So on for training tips. I know this has been a very cyber-centric podcast episode. CISA, the National Initiative, I can't talk today. I'm sorry, guys. But the U.S. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency has a lot of awesome trainings out there that are free. If you are a professional that wants to pivot into cybersecurity or information technology, Professor Messer has an immense amount of videos out there to get you started in your A+ certification, your Network Plus certification, your cybersecurity or Security Plus certification. I
believe Google has started a cybersecurity program as well.
They have, and Microsoft also has their cloud-based Azure programs, which they run some free trainings on those and free certifications. If this is, the place where you want to go, if you're an existing physical security professional, you're in EMS, you're a first responder, and you want to try something new, but you want to still do that investigative, you want to have some of that excitement, cybersecurity is definitely a place to go. And it's a giant cloud of different topics. Like I said, I'm not your hacker. I'm your threat intelligence, and I'm your governance risk compliance guy. I'm the paperwork guy. I'm not the guy going out there hacking stuff.
Yeah, and just because you're not into cybersecurity and you're just a security officer or whatever, it never hurts to go get a little training on it, to know a little bit about what's going on. Because one, it'll help keep you safer, and two, it'll help keep your organization safer. And a lot, you need to keep your organization safe. That's your employer, so you do have a vested interest in their interest of staying safe from cyber attacks. Because if they are attacked, it will affect you. In one way or another, it will affect you. So go get a little training on it. Like Corwin said, CISA, that's who our training tip is today. They have a ton of free trainings for everyone of all ages. So if your 10-year-old wants to get into it, have them hop on that website. It's a government website. It's safe, maybe. I'm just joking with you guys.
Quick tip, real quick. One thing with taking those classes, courses, certifications like that, if you are looking to move into something like that, a lot of places look for those certifications. They don't really care. I'm not going to say they don't care about a degree or anything like that, but a lot of places would rather you have those certifications than they would a degree.
Because a lot of those certifications, they provide you with that experience that they're looking for, or not so much the experience, but you have that foot in the door. Because you think about it, you go to college, you have maybe one or two classes over cybersecurity. The rest of it is like math, science, and that shit. So yeah, you might have a degree in it, but how much of it did you actually do in college? So to get those those certifications, it shows that you've gotten a little more into it. And I'm not saying don't go to college. Go to college, further your education. Just work on that stuff too.
Do what makes sense for you. And as for other training tips and gear review, I know Jake has a gear review, but some of the gear, some of the stuff that I like, if you want to get into penetration testing, your go-to, if you want to learn, use Hack the Box. It has some free stuff on there. It'll get you some of that experience get into a little bit more of the technical side. If you want to get into more of the technical side, you can always use the open source operating system, Kali Linux. If you want to do more investigations and you want to do more OSINT, open source intelligence, Michael Basil has a book, OSINT Techniques, Resources for Uncovering Online Information, that is immensely helpful. I think it's in its 10th or 11th edition now. He also has a podcast that I highly recommend. And just go out and learn. The gear out there, it doesn't matter if you're using a 10-year-old laptop, it can run Kali Linux and you can get some of that basic information.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably have 100 different tips, training tips, and gear reviews we could recommend you guys. But just go out, get some training. Training is always good, whether it's the most boring shit ever or the most exciting thing ever. Training will further you and your education immensely. So go get some training. My gear review for today, it's not really gear, it's more of a software, but it falls into the cybersecurity again. It's NordVPN. It's a VPN, obviously. It's really cheap. It works, and it'll keep you safe while you surf the internet. I should point out that, again, I think I've said it in previous episodes, we are not sponsored by any of these. If we are sponsored by someone, we will surely tell you about it, because if we're making money, then we'll mention them a lot. But, until then, we're not sponsored by any of them. So if these two don't have anything else for you guys, Joe, Corwin?
Basically, talk to your leadership about how you can be a little more proactive to converge those to cybersecurity and physical security. Stay out there, stay warm, stay cool, stay safe.
Only thing I got is next time you make fun of the IT nerd or the guy with glasses that just sits behind a computer all day, just remember that guy might have stopped the largest attack in American history. Just remember that.
Yep, the guys sitting behind the computer can also be secret badasses, guys.
Absolutely. So that's all we got for you guys on this episode of Beyond the Barrier. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you'd like more, check out our other podcast. If you'd want to reach us, you can reach us at beyondthebarrier1@gmail.com. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, leave a review, and we will catch you guys on the next episode of Beyond the Barrier. Stay safe.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Barrier. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of public safety, fire, law enforcement, EMS, and security with us. Your trusty hosts, Jake, Joe, and Corwin. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for even more exclusive content and behind-the-scenes look at our guests and topics. But for now, it's time to put down the walkie-talkies and hang up the handcuffs. We'll catch you next time on Beyond the Barrier, where we'll continue to break down barriers and explore the exciting world of first responders and security professionals. Stay safe out there.